Carol and I are here to talk about customer incivility. And Carol runs an amazing business called Axonify, which really does a fantastic job in empowering people on the front line of retail to be able to cope better with these types of situations, as well as be able to sell more effectively and deliver a great customer experience. And I'm sure we all agree, no one should have to go to work and worry about being attacked by a customer, right? Or taking the kind of abuse that some people sadly are at the moment. So we're going to try and unpick that topic. But before we do, maybe you could just say a little bit about yourself and a bit about Axonify before we go any further.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Martin, and thank you all for attending. As Martin mentioned, I am the co-founder and CEO of Axonify, where we are in the business of frontline learning and enablement and operations that deliver tools and information daily to about 4 million frontline associates worldwide in many countries. And the whole objective being that we want those frontline associates to be equipped in the moments that matter every single day to do and say the right things for the business.
Thank you, Carol. Just getting back to the problem that we're trying to unpick with regards to incivility towards colleagues on the front line. I know that you did a pulse survey recently, and you found that 40% of associates were afraid to go to work. 40% of associates working on the front line of retail in North America and other markets are actually scared to go to work because of what they might actually have to face on any given day. I think that's a pretty sad indictment of the world that we live in at the moment. And they obviously want more support to help them with conflict de-escalation. And I believe that was I think that was amongst the most requested training from the front line, 51% by managers, 32% for employees, because they need to have the real skills to actually help deal with those situations, more effectively. Carol, I understand that there's legislation now in place in America. I don't think we've got anything in the UK yet. I don't know about Canada, but certainly in the States, that's being put in place to proactively help, or to help retailers proactively support their frontline teams to deal with these issues. So in California and New York, where shoplifting rose by 64% in Los Angeles and 61% in New York between 2019 and 2023. So according to the Council of Criminal Justice. So these laws have been introduced, and it's a comprehensive workplace violence prevention act. Have you seen, or how have you seen retailers evolve their approach, Carol, towards customer incivility, taking all of that into account?
It is an evolving situation. It continues to evolve. In fact, to what you just said a moment ago, Martin, we survey retail associates every year, thousands of retail workers and their managers, and we've been doing it for years, and quite literally, it was only in this last report that this issue of customer incivility showed up in the top 10. And as you see on the slide here, managers, in terms of challenge, number 2, dealing with customers, employees, number 1, challenging customers. And so what we're seeing with our customers certainly is a heightened emphasis on how do you enable the people in the stores to effectively deal with a whole myriad of situations. And, there's still a lot who are struggling to know what to do, how to train. And so we are trying to help our customers prepare and enable their workforce to deal with that myriad of situations. And I'll tell you a short story that just actually happened to my sister. And she and I were debating, what the root cause of it was. She was in a home improvement store recently looking at one of those electric fireplaces to put in her family room. And she was staring at the different choices, and a woman came up behind her with one of those long pull carts that you can put a large piece of merchandise on. She stood beside my sister and started to move a big heavy box off the bottom shelf onto that flatbed. And my sister saw her struggling and actually said, "Can I help you with that?" And the woman said, "No, it's okay." And 10 minutes later, my sister was checking out with some other merchandise, and this woman walked behind her, pulling that cart with the fireplace on it, and walked straight out the door. And my sister turned to the associate who was checking her out and said, "I think that woman just stole that fireplace." And the associate looked at my sister and went, didn't say anything, just sort of shrugged her shoulders. And my sister said to me, because she knows we do a lot of business with retail, "What do you think that was all about?" I was shocked. And as a customer, I know that I'm paying for that in the cost of merchandise. And, we started to debate, is it an issue of the associate simply doesn't know what to do, or the associate has been told not to do anything? What is the actual reason why that woman was simply allowed to go? And my sister watched her load the fireplace onto the back of her pickup truck and drive away.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you think the answer is? Is it maybe a bit of both, possibly?
It could be a bit of both. And my suspicion was, in that case, the associate probably had been told not to engage. But from a training point of view, again, my opinion and what we see with other retailers, that associate should have been trained to say, "Hold on a minute," and to call security. Or to do something, not nothing. And so really, it gets down to what are we seeing our customers and others do, and really understanding some of the root causes of how to deal with it. And we can get into more of that.
Yeah. Maybe bring some of those to life. I mean, there's obviously, outside of just the core sort of training staff in the first place, there's creating a safe space and establishing boundaries, obviously leveraging technology. So there's quite a few different things, isn't there, that retailers can do?
There really is. And, also, I remember a quote from the CEO of Lowe's, who worked in retail his entire career, rose up the ranks to be the CEO of obviously a huge retailer. And, his perspective is that all things related to, customer unrest and unhappiness really can be mitigated by customer service. And so one of the things that we certainly see as a trend is a lot more training on understanding customer service principles so that you can mitigate some of the upset by excellent customer service at the outset. Now, where, you get into a situation where you have that incivility and it's active, a customer's really upset, it comes to, having to train the associates on the boundaries. One of our customers does an excellent job with really bringing that human element of the associate to it. They're very associate-centric in training on how to create those boundaries, how to make sure that the associate knows what to do, not just theoretically, but in the moment. And as you mentioned, technology is one of those things that can be leveraged in a whole variety of ways. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it's not so helpful. But one of the ways technology can help is by continuously reinforcing that training. It's not every day this happens, fortunately. So making sure that associates are continuously reinforced and have that information at their fingertips in the moments they have a few minutes to refresh. And leveraging technology that way is super important, so that when something does happen, maybe 2 months later, maybe 5 months later, they instantly know how to react and what to do. So understanding root causes like customer service, creating those boundaries, doing an excellent job of training on all the types of situations and what to do, and bringing that personal view to it, and then leveraging technology are three of the trends and techniques that we see really, really happening now.
I think if I was going to layer anything onto that, maybe it might be around empowerment. I'm a great fan and a great advocate. I've got all these different ways of looking at return on investment. And what we're talking about now, I think, falls into my first ROI, which is return on inspiration. Because the more we inspire our people, the better job we do by training them, developing them, giving them the right tools to do their jobs to the best of their ability, the more likely they are to want to stay with us, to see a long-term career with us, and also to go above and beyond in the experience that they give our customers. And maybe one of the things we need to be encouraging retailers to do more is to empower people to make decisions that are on the front line of retail. And that might be one of the barriers here. The anecdote you provided there from your sister, it might be that, the person that's working on the till there probably, in a general sense, isn't empowered to make decisions for customers. Therefore, would be more reluctant to intervene or do anything when they were aware that somebody was, walking out with, goods. Think so? Possibly?
I absolutely do. You've just made me think of something else. I started my working life in retail, actually, 2 different retailers in a row. And, I'm fairly old now. And back in the day...
You're just a young thing.
Oh, yeah. Back in the day, if I had a customer who was upset about something, they weren't happy with a product and they wanted to return it or whatever, what I did was, if I could not appease the customer quickly, I would just escalate it to my manager, and my manager would come over and make that decision. And more often than not, as soon as I saw the customer was kind of upset, that's exactly what I would do. I was not empowered to take action of any kind. And, that was 30 or 35 years ago. Today, it's a whole other world.
Yeah.
And, we need the associates to understand the limits that they have and to be able to exercise those limits to instantly mitigate and de-escalate a situation. In fact, we have a content library of about 1,000 topics that are freely available, many of which now relate to customer incivility. So things like dealing with abusive behavior, all of that sort of thing. And, as you see here on the slide, 8 out of 10 of our most popular topics now relate to customer incivility and workplace safety, which is astounding. Again, back to our deskless report, 5 years ago, this stuff wasn't even a thing. And now it's a very big thing. And
presumably that report is available to download on Axonify.com.
It is. Yeah, lots of great data in there about how retail associates and the managers in the stores are feeling.
People out there might find that quite interesting. I was just going to tell a very quick anecdote about a business that anyone from the UK here might have heard of. And it's called Timson. It's a family business. You get your keys cut, your shoes rehealed, you can get batteries in your watches changed. It's, I think, now probably a fourth or fifth generation family business. And interestingly, all the people in that business, whether they work on the front line, no matter where they are in the business, everyone's empowered to make a decision. No one has to ask a boss for that level of empowerment. They're empowered to make decisions. So the people on the front line, they can give discounts, they can give compensation if something's gone wrong, they can even come up with their own marketing ideas and promotions. And that's one of the ways that keeps them very successful continually year after year. But the other interesting thing that was going through my mind and why they probably don't suffer from too much customer incivility is this is a business that goes out of its way to provide opportunity for ex-prisoners and ex-convicts to be rehabilitated. So on any given day, nearly 50% of the people that are serving on the front line of their hundreds of stores around the UK are either ex-convicts or they're actually on day release from jail at that moment in time. And I'm not too sure too many customers would feel confident about going in and messing with those people, right? So maybe that's one of the reasons why they don't have such a big issue with it.
Could be.
Anyway, moving on. So I think fantastic feedback, and thank you for providing all of that, Carol. Just a little thing, again, I happen to have the privilege of being involved with a charity in the UK called the Retail Trust. It is the oldest retail charity, I think, in the world. It's certainly the oldest retail charity in the UK. It's been around since 1832. And today, as it really always has been, it's there to support the workers in retail. It provides, previously it's provided housing and accommodation for people in retail. Today, it does an awful lot of great work around improving the health and well-being and addressing the mental health challenges of people working in retail. And they've created a hashtag, which is Respect Retail. And the thinking behind that is that we are trying to encourage everyone, consumers, and obviously retailers across the United Kingdom. Hopefully we could do something in North America as well like that. Might be an idea to understand the challenge that we're facing around customer incivility. And this is a great sector. I too grew up in retail. I started working on the shop floor of my father's retail opticians 42 years ago. So I'm not that far behind you, Carol. I think I'm only a year behind you. And then I went on to run home shopping and a whole bunch of channels for Burberry and Harrods and brands like that. But I started working in retail when it was the sexiest and the most exciting industry that you could possibly choose to work in. And I worry that what's going on at the moment with incivility and the things that people are having to face day in, day out on the front line might change that, and we might see it much harder to convince and encourage people to come in to work in the retail industry. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
I completely agree. In fact, it wasn't that long ago during COVID that we lauded retail associates for being on the front lines and being in the in positions of risk where our health was concerned, just so that they could keep grocery stores open and other sorts of retail outlets. And, we were so happy to see this segment of the employment population celebrated for the work that they do. And, then we all started to read the stories about retail associates not showing up for work, quitting on the spot, just leaving in droves because they simply didn't want to have to deal with customers who they were afraid of. And I am convinced that some of the labor shortage that we see today in some of these frontline roles is directly related to the risk that these people feel going to work every day.
And it's quite astonishing, really, that any retailer, that in itself should be enough to make anyone want to address that. But also the commercial impact of staff churn because of the issues that they're facing. The increased recruitment costs, the increased training costs, the inconsistency in service, which then has an impact on sales and performance, net promoter scores, conversion rates, and everything else. Seems such an obvious thing to need to fix, doesn't it?
It really is. And, what I can say is this, that the retailers that are really diving deep on leveraging learning knowledge in these areas and consistently reinforcing what to do, what to say, what not to do in all the different types of situations that could occur to protect themselves, to protect other customers. Those that are really, taking it seriously and doing a great job of enabling their managers and their associates are seeing impacts to retention, to reduce turnover, to improvements in customer service, to fewer escalations. And so really it does come down to people who feel confident in how to address a situation versus terrified in the moment will behave differently. And it will be a benefit both to them and to the business.
So it's basically morally the right thing to do and commercially the right thing to do as well. Thank you for sharing that. Let's discuss the importance of effectively handling these situations that go beyond just, I don't mean just training, because training is massively important, but other areas of support. And I know that you've got, I think one of your customers is the Briscoe.
Yeah.
Who might actually have been a customer of mine many years ago in New Zealand, who have got more than 90 stores, which makes them quite a big business in New Zealand retail terms. Do you want to talk about that and what they've done and a couple of the other things there?
Yeah, Briscoe's is a great retailer, as Mark mentioned, in New Zealand. And they've taken a very holistic, sort of rounded approach to enablement of associates where this issue is concerned. So one of the things that they do is they leverage AI and video head-mounted display training that is very realistic in terms of training on a variety of situations. So the associate actually feels immersed in what's happening in the video and can then, react and get feedback about the appropriateness or not of the reaction. So there are some great retailers doing some, pretty intense training where this is concerned. But, as it goes to support generally, we are seeing trends to having people expert in conflict resolution be leveraged in stores to train managers, to train associates on how to de-escalate a situation. So there's role playing involved, more than just, again, the theoretical. It's putting that manager, that associate in a pseudo real life situation. Then of course there's the support after the fact. If an incident happens, there are some retailers, Dollar General being one, that, instantly activates one-on-one counseling for affected associates, and even those that may not have been present, in the situation when it happened. So there's the pre-support done in a variety of ways, again, in ways that we never would have imagined. And who would have ever imagined a retailer would be employing a conflict resolution expert training associates, but they do.
Yeah. And I believe you've got a content library with, over 900 sources of content? Have I got that right? It's probably a lot more than that, I'm guessing. But
yeah, lots and lots of topics. And, again, the amount of activity we see in terms of download of all the topics related to this is pretty incredible. But we know it's having an impact.
Yeah. I guess, it's not making an excuse for it, but obviously we've been through a challenging time globally for a while now. It seems like we came out of the pandemic and then we hurtled into cost of living crisis and all sorts of stuff going on around the world. So, the reality is obviously there are many people who are facing into, financial difficulty in North America and the UK and plenty other places around the world, but it certainly doesn't excuse that type of behavior. But to some extent, it may explain why we've seen a spike in it, over recent times. Well, for me, I personally think that the front line of retail is the most important in any business. If you're a multi-channel business, people on the front line, they make the difference between success and not being successful. And the more we can do to give them the tools to do the job to the best of their ability, the more we can do to empower them, I think in the short, medium, and long term is going to really stand us in good stead. I think things are better in North America. Whenever I go into anywhere, I've been in Canada recently or the US, customer service generally, I'd say, is actually pretty good. It's a decent level. When I compare it to the UK, which I'm afraid to say I think is not. I think it's on its knees. I think we've gone a step too far, and we've now got to repick that and think about how we start to prove to people that retail is a great environment to work in, and make it a more enjoyable place to stay and work. Carol, I'm very grateful for the insight that you've shared today. And you mentioned the deskless report, so that's available on the website here. That's what it looks like. Lots of insight in there, lots of case studies and anecdotes. So I'd recommend you go to axonify.com/deskless-report. I can open up now to see if there's any questions. Gentleman over here with the very fetching spectacles, may I add.
Thank you very much.
Could you just tell us, first of all, your name and where you're from, and then ask your question?
My name's Andrew Adam Newman. I'm from Retail Brew. I think we saw a lot of the viral videos during the pandemic of customers just being appalling around distancing and masking and things like that.
Yeah.
You're saying that the problem is maybe worse than it was during the pandemic. Can you give some examples of the sorts of incivility don't have anything to do with shoplifting? Unlike your example, what are the biggest, when customers are being particularly obnoxious, what are they doing, and what are some of the basic responses that you are coaching people to have when people do get obnoxious?
Do you want to talk to that, Carol?
Yeah, I can give you actually an example that just recently happened to me. I was in a store, and it was a retailer that had those bins now that you can put your merchandise in, and it automatically knows what's in the bin because of the RFID tag, and comes up on the screen, and you throw your credit card in. So I was in the middle of doing that, and there was a customer in the bin beside me who put 2 things into the bin, and 4 things came up on the screen. And so she pulled them out, and the screen didn't clear. And so she was, where's the associate to help me? And the screen did then clear. So she put the stuff back in the bin. And I was just sort of watching this from the side, and 4 things came up on the screen. So I could see the irritation starting, and you hear the breathing, you see the looking around like, I need help. And so I saw a retail associate whose job it was to monitor the checkout area. And I just sort of looked at him, and he recognized that this woman was struggling. So he came over, and to be honest, she was very rude to him. And I just thought, wow, just state your problem, and it's not this guy's fault. And anyway, she was extremely rude to this, I would guess he was 20 or 22 years old. And that retail associate was very calm. So instead of saying, I don't know, and obviously struggling himself, he basically said to the woman, "Give me a moment, please. I will sort you out." And he ended up pulling the stuff out, putting it back in, understanding the problem. And he immediately stuck his hand in one of the pockets. She was buying a jacket. He stuck his hand in one of the pockets, pulled out 2 RFID tags from other merchandise somebody had stolen, and ripped the tags off, put them in the pocket of the jacket, and obviously walked out of the store with them. And so he pulled these 2 things out, set them aside, put her merchandise back in the bin, and 2 items came up. And just the way that this young man handled that situation, I thought he's been very well trained. And he got the customer to calm down. He just calmly asked her to please give him a moment. He would sort her out. And it just sort of caused her to step aside. So there's all manner of situations where people today, for whatever reason, are just far less patient than we used to be. There's some grace and some patience and kindness that we've lost.
Absolutely. Funnily enough, I remember many, many, many years ago, I'm going back now, crikey, 34 years ago. I'm from Glasgow in Scotland, by the way, if any of you know it. It's the school of hard knocks, right? It's not the easiest place to grow up in. And I worked on the door of a bar in the centre of Glasgow as an 18-year-old to make some extra money. And I had to use that, as you can tell, I still do it today, but I had to use that really well to de-escalate a lot of tense situations. And I worked on the door for over a year, albeit only at the weekends. I never once had to raise my fists, and never once had somebody punch me either. So I reckon there's something in that. Anyway, unfortunately, we've run out of time. I hope you'll join me in thanking Carol Leaman from Axonify. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
And thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of NRF. Thank you.